Welcome to Scare Tales in the Dark. Turn down the lights, pull the covers tight, and get ready for chilling stories that will keep you up at night. From haunted houses to unsolved mysteries, we dive deep into the darkness. Subscribe and hit the bell, if you dare. What's lurking in the dark is just the beginning. The unseen presence under my bed. It's strange the way your mind can create things when you're alone. I've always felt safe in my room, in my bed, with the warm comfort of my blankets wrapped around me. But that night, something changed. That night I felt it. The unseen presence lurking just out of my sight. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, my body exhausted from a long day. The room was quiet. Too quiet. The faint hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. At first, it was subtle. I thought it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. A shift in the air, the faintest sound, like something brushing against the floor beneath my bed. I tried to ignore it, turning over in bed, pulling the covers tighter around me. But that's when I felt it. The coldness. It wasn't the usual coolness of the room. No, this was different. It was coming from below me, from under the bed, and it felt wrong. I told myself it was just a draft, that it was nothing. But then I heard it again. A soft scrape, like nails gently dragging across the floor beneath the bed. My heart skipped a beat. My body froze, and I held my breath. I listened intently, hoping I had imagined it. But then the sound came again, louder this time, a soft scuffling, as though something was moving beneath the bed, just out of reach. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, my mind screaming at me to get up, to check, to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. The fear had taken over. My eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of something out of place. But everything appeared normal. The window was closed, the door locked, the room exactly as it had been when I went to bed. But something was there. I could feel it. And that feeling only grew stronger the longer I lay still, waiting for the next sound. The room seemed to grow colder, and I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to warm up. But it was no use. The coldness underneath the bed pressed against me, suffocating me with its presence. I slowly shifted my gaze to the edge of the bed, where the shadows of the room stretched long and dark. I could see nothing. No movement, no form. Just the darkness. But the longer I stared, the more I felt like something was watching me, waiting. I couldn't take it any longer. I had to look. Slowly, inch by inch, I inched myself up in bed, my eyes fixed on the space beneath the bed. I pulled the covers closer around me, my hands shaking. The room was so silent now, the only sound was my own breathing. Then, suddenly, it happened. The bed creaked. A soft, faint sound like something, or someone, shifting under the weight of the bed. I jumped out of bed in a heartbeat, nearly tripping over my own feet. The darkness in the room felt suffocating, and the air was thick with the heaviness of whatever was lurking under the bed. I turned on the light. The room illuminated in a harsh glow, and I stood there frozen in place, my eyes scanning every corner, every shadow, every inch of space. But nothing was there. Nothing at all. The bed was still. The floor was empty. No one was hiding beneath it. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me, a product of overactive imagination. Maybe it was the shadows, the angles of the room that made everything seem off. I sat back down on the bed, my breath shaky and uneven. But something wasn't right. The room felt different now, almost suffocating, like the presence was still there, even though I couldn't see it. That night, I slept with the lights on. I couldn't bring myself to turn them off, not knowing what waited in the shadows. The next few nights were the same. Every time I went to bed, I felt the coldness creeping in, that feeling of something lurking beneath me, just out of sight. The sounds continued, scraping, shifting, breathing. But no matter how many times I checked, I never saw anything. The presence was always there, just beyond my vision. I tried to convince myself that it was nothing. But deep down, I knew better. Every night, I could feel it, closer, waiting. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was under my bed wasn't ready to leave. It was waiting for something, waiting for me to look one last time, to see it. And I knew that when I did, it would be too late.
The stranger who watches from the window. It all started one night when I was lying in bed, trying to drift off to sleep. The room was silent, and the only sound was the occasional rustle of the trees outside, swaying gently in the breeze. I had just moved into this apartment, a cozy little place in a quiet neighborhood, and I thought it would be a perfect retreat from the chaos of the city. I had no idea how wrong I was. At first it was just a flicker in the corner of my eye, something that seemed off. I glanced out the window, thinking it was just a shadow cast by the streetlights. But then I saw it. Something I couldn't explain. There, just across the street, was a figure standing still in front of a house. They were facing my window, but not moving. It was too dark to make out much detail, just the vague silhouette of a person standing perfectly still, staring at me. I thought I must have been imagining things, so I turned away, chalking it up to a trick of the light or my mind playing games after a long day. But over the next few nights, it happened again, and again. Every time I looked, there they were, standing, watching, never moving. It was always the same time, just as I was about to fall asleep. At first I thought it was just some weird coincidence, but deep down, something in my gut told me it wasn't. One night I decided to confront it. I pulled back the curtains slowly, trying not to make a sound. There in the distance was the figure, still watching. My heart began to race as I stared at the person, trying to discern who they were. But just as I was about to turn on the light to get a better look, they stepped back into the darkness, vanishing without a trace. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up, waiting for the figure to appear again, but it didn't. The silence was unbearable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, even though I was in my own apartment. The next few days were normal, but the unease lingered. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just an odd occurrence, but deep down, I couldn't ignore the feeling that someone was watching me. I started closing the curtains during the day and never leaving the blinds open at night. But it didn't stop. It only got worse. I started seeing the figure more frequently, this time, not just at night. They were there in the early hours of the morning, when the streets were still empty and the world was quiet. And they weren't just standing there anymore. Now they would move. Just a little. A shift of their body, a slow turn of the head toward my window. It felt as though they knew when I was looking, and they would always be watching. I felt trapped. Every time I looked out that window, there they were. It wasn't just a person anymore. It was something much darker. I couldn't explain it, but it felt wrong. I felt like they were waiting for me to come to the window, daring me to face them. But no matter how much I wanted to confront them, I couldn't. Something in me was too afraid. Then came the night when everything changed. I had been staring at the spot where the figure usually stood for what felt like hours. My eyes were fixed on the dark corner, almost willing them to appear, when suddenly, the shadows shifted. The figure moved closer, closer than I had ever seen them before. I could see the details now. Dark clothes, tall and thin, and a face that was pale and expressionless. But it wasn't just the details that struck me. It was the eyes, cold, empty. As if they weren't human eyes at all, just black voids staring back at me. That's when I realized something truly horrifying. The figure wasn't just standing there to watch me, it was waiting for me to approach the window. I had always been too afraid to go closer, to face what was out there. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't confront it soon, it would come inside. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. It felt like I was suffocating. The room was suddenly too small, the walls closing in on me. I turned on every light in the apartment, locking every door and window, even though I knew it wouldn't help. The next morning, I woke up to find that the figure was gone. For the first time in days, I didn't see them standing across the street. I thought maybe, just maybe, I had imagined it all. Maybe it was just the stress of moving, the overwhelming quiet of the neighborhood that made me paranoid. But as I looked out the window one last time, I saw something that sent chills down my spine. There, on the sidewalk, was a small piece of paper. I went outside and picked it up, feeling a cold shiver run through me. The paper had only 2 words written on it. I see you. That's when I realized it wasn't just a person. It was something much darker, something that had been watching me from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to make its move. And now it knew I was watching it too. I've been looking over my shoulder ever since, checking every window, every corner of the street. And every night, when I lay in bed, I can still feel it watching me from the darkness, waiting for the moment when I'll make the mistake of looking again. But this time I won't. This time I'll keep my blinds shut. I won't dare peek out the window, because I know that the next time I do, it will be there, waiting for me. And I won't be able to look away.
The whispering shadows in my bedroom. It's strange how the most unsettling things always seem to happen when we're alone. When you're sitting in the silence of your own bedroom, surrounded by the comfort of what's supposed to be your safe space, the mind begins to play tricks on you. I've always thought of my room as a sanctuary, a place where I could retreat from the chaos of the world, but not anymore. Now, every night something happens, and I can't explain it. It started a few weeks ago, and at first I thought I was imagining it. I was sitting in bed, reading a book, when I heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe it was my neighbor talking through the walls. But then, it happened again. The whisper, this time louder, clearer, came from the dark corner of my room, just beyond the edge of my vision. I froze, trying to ignore it, but it was too much to ignore. "Come closer," it said, in a voice that felt wrong. Too close, like it was breathing right in my ear. My heart skipped a beat. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, but I told myself it was just my imagination. I turned on the light, looking around the room. Nothing, just the usual clutter. The shadows seemed to stretch further than they should have, but I convinced myself it was nothing. I tried to go back to my book, but the silence felt heavier now. I couldn't focus. I kept looking at the corner, at the place where the shadow seemed the darkest. And that's when I saw it. The shadow moved. It wasn't the usual play of light against the walls. Number. This was something else. It shifted, stretching unnaturally, like it was alive. The shape wasn't human. It wasn't like anything I could recognize. I watched, frozen in place, as it seemed to inch closer to me. Then came the whisper again, clearer this time. "Stay with us." I wanted to scream, to get up and run, but my body wouldn't move. It felt like the air had thickened, pressing down on me. The shadows seemed to grow longer, as if they were swallowing the room whole. My pulse raced. My body screamed for me to leave, but my mind was stuck in some kind of trance. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the corner. I could feel something dark, lurking just out of my reach. And then, for a split second, I saw it. A figure. Its outline was indistinct, but its eyes, those eyes, were all I could focus on. They glowed with an eerie, pale light. The figure didn't move, but the whisper continued, a soft murmur just beneath the silence, as if it was speaking to me and the shadows at the same time. "Closer," it whispered. I snapped out of it, finally breaking free from the trance. My hands were trembling as I reached for the light switch. As the room flooded with brightness, the shadows retreated to their corners, but not fully. They stayed there, lingering. I checked the clock, 11:47 p.m. It seemed like hours had passed, but it had only been a few minutes. I spent the rest of the night with the light on, wide awake, staring at the walls, listening for anything out of the ordinary. But there was nothing, no whispers, no moving shadows, just silence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there, watching me from the corners of the room. The next few nights were the same. At first, I thought maybe I had imagined the whole thing, but then it happened again. The whisper, the darkness creeping closer, the figure, always just out of reach, always in the corner, waiting. I could never fully see it, but I could always feel it. The coldness that seeped into my skin, the pressure in the air, like something was pressing against me from all sides. And then one night, something changed. I had been trying to fall asleep, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore it. The room felt so cold, so empty. And that's when I heard the whisper again, clearer than before. "Are you afraid?" it asked. The voice was softer now, almost gentle, but I could hear the malice behind it. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. I turned my head slowly, and there, standing at the foot of my bed, was a figure. This time, I could see it. It wasn't fully human. Its skin was a deep shade of gray, and its eyes, they were wide, too wide. Its body was gaunt, its arms long and thin, stretching out like tendrils toward me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was as though my body was frozen in place, completely under its control. "Why don't you want to stay?" it whispered. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew I needed to escape. With everything I had, I pushed myself up from the bed and ran to the door. But when I opened it, the hallway was completely dark. The house felt empty, silent. No one else was home. The shadows seemed to shift, like they were reaching for me from the corners of the hallway. But I couldn't stay to find out. I slammed the door shut and locked it, trembling. My heart was racing, my head spinning. I didn't know what was happening, but I knew I couldn't stay in that room any longer, not alone. That night, I didn't sleep. The whispers kept coming, but they weren't in the corner anymore. They were closer, right next to me, in my ear. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those eyes again. Those glowing, unblinking eyes, staring back at me from the darkness. I've tried everything since then. I've moved the furniture around, changed the layout of the room, even bought new lights. But the shadows always return. They never truly leave. The whispers never stop. It's been a week since it all started, and I'm still here, trying to sleep, trying to ignore it. But the truth is, I can't. I don't know what those shadows want, but I can feel them closing in every night, and I can't escape them. Every night I hear them whispering again, "Come closer."
Silent watchers, the night. The motion detector came alive. It was a quiet, chilly evening. I had just settled in with a cup of tea, my dog Max curled up at my feet, and my cat Luna perched on the windowsill, watching the world go by. The soft hum of the heater and the occasional crackling of the wood in the fireplace were the only sounds in the house. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. The motion detector, a new addition to the house, had been installed a week ago. It was supposed to add an extra layer of security, especially since I lived alone in a somewhat isolated area. Max and Luna seemed indifferent to it, but I had to admit it gave me a sense of comfort. Tonight, however, that comfort was about to shatter. Just as I was about to doze off, the motion detector's alarm blared through the house, a piercing, high-pitched sound that startled me out of my seat. Max bolted upright, barking wildly, his eyes darting toward the hallway. Luna hissed, her fur bristling as she leapt off the windowsill. I grabbed my phone and checked the app linked to the motion detector. The notification read, "Movement detected, living room." But that was impossible. I was in the living room, and there was no one else here. My heart pounded as I scanned the room. Nothing. Just shadows cast by the flickering firelight. Suddenly, the lights throughout the house began to flicker erratically. It was like a scene from a horror movie, each flicker casting strange, distorted shadows on the walls. The alarm continued to wail, its relentless shriek merging with Max's frantic barking and Luna's low growls. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, though my voice trembled. I cautiously stepped toward the hallway, phone clutched tightly in my hand. The light flickered overhead, casting eerie patterns on the walls. Max followed closely, his body tense, ready to protect. The detector's alarm stopped as abruptly as it had started, plunging the house into an eerie silence. The only sound was the soft creak of the wooden floor beneath my feet and the distant hum of the heater. Then, a new sound emerged, a faint tapping. It was rhythmic, deliberate, and it seemed to be coming from the basement. "Max, stay here," I whispered, but the dog was already at my side, his eyes locked on the basement door. Luna had vanished, likely hiding in some safe corner of the house. I reached for the door, my hand trembling as I grasped the cold metal knob. The tapping continued, louder now, echoing in the silence. With a deep breath, I swung the door open, revealing the dark descent below. The basement light flickered on its own, casting a pale, sickly glow over the concrete steps. I descended slowly, each step creaking under my weight. Max followed, his growls low and steady. As we reached the bottom, the tapping stopped. The basement was empty. The shelves stood neatly, untouched, and the old furnace hummed quietly in the corner. I scanned every corner, but there was nothing out of place. Just as I was about to turn back, the motion detector's alarm blared again, this time from upstairs. Panicked, I raced back up, Max close behind. The living room was in chaos. The lights were flashing wildly, the alarm shrieking louder than ever. And then, in the midst of the cacophony, I saw it. A shadowy figure stood in the middle of the room. It was tall, featureless, and unmoving. The flickering lights played tricks with its form, making it seem like it was shifting, morphing. Max barked furiously, but the figure didn't move. Gathering every ounce of courage, I shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" But there was no response, only silence as the alarm cut off, and the lights suddenly stopped flickering. The figure was gone. One blink, and it vanished, leaving behind only the unsettling memory of its presence. Max and I stood in the silent room, the tension slowly dissipating. Luna emerged from her hiding spot, cautiously sniffing the air. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, Max by my side, Luna in my lap, the three of us keeping watch. The motion detector didn't go off again, but the uneasy feeling lingered. The next day, I checked the footage from the motion detector, hoping to find some explanation, but there was nothing. No sign of the figure, no sign of any movement, just me, Max, and Luna, sitting in the living room, waiting for whatever was out there to make its next move. Since that night, the motion detector has gone off a few more times, always at the same hour, always without explanation. I don't know what it was that visited us, or why it came, but every night as the clock strikes midnight, I sit with Max and Luna, waiting for the silent watchers to return. The midnight broadcast. It all started on a quiet, uneventful night. I was up late, as usual, scrolling aimlessly through my phone when I decided to tune into some local radio stations for background noise. As I twisted the dial, searching for something familiar, I stumbled upon a station I had never heard before. The static hissed, then cleared, revealing a haunting melody played on what sounded like an old, out-of-tune piano. The music was slow, melancholic, almost hypnotic. It pulled me in, filling the room with an eerie atmosphere. Then, a voice broke through the static, cold, mechanical, unsettling. "Welcome to the midnight broadcast," it announced, followed by a faint, unsettling chuckle. The voice was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It wasn't human, or at least, it didn't sound like one. There was something artificial about it, something that sent a chill down my spine. The strange thing was, the station wasn't listed anywhere. I checked the dial again, but there was no number, no identification, just there. Curious and a bit unnerved, I kept listening. The voice continued, sharing cryptic messages and strange, disjointed stories. They were tales of despair, horror, and madness. Stories of people who had gone missing, events that defied logic, and entities that lurked just beyond the veil of our reality. As the minutes ticked by, I noticed something strange. The stories became increasingly personal. They referenced places I knew, events from my childhood, and even specific fears I'd never shared with anyone. My heart began to race. How could this be? It felt like the broadcast was speaking directly to me. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then the broadcast took a darker turn. It described, in vivid detail, a horrific event happening right then in my own neighborhood. A car accident on a street corner I recognized. A fire in a house just a few blocks away. My blood ran cold. I raced to the window, peering out into the night. Everything seemed quiet, normal, but the voice on the radio continued, unrelenting. "The midnight hour brings forth the truth," it said, "and the truth is watching you." Panicking, I tried to turn off the radio, but the knob wouldn't budge. I unplugged it, yet the voice continued, the signal seemingly coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Desperate, I smashed the radio, but even that didn't stop the broadcast. The sound shifted, now coming from my phone. I tried to shut it down, but the screen was frozen, the same eerie voice echoing from the speaker. I turned on the TV, hoping for a distraction, but the image was distorted, filled with static, and the voice was there too. "Don't try to run," it whispered. "We're already here." My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away from the devices, but the voice was relentless. Then it said something that made my blood turn to ice. "We see you, listening right now. Look out your window." I froze. My hand shook as I reached for the curtain, pulling it back slowly. The street outside was bathed in a pale, sickly glow from the flickering streetlights. And then I saw it. Standing in the middle of the street was a figure, tall, motionless, and utterly featureless. No face, no eyes, no mouth, just a blank canvas where a face should be. It stood there, staring, or at least I felt it was staring, directly at me. I stumbled back, heart racing, gasping for breath. The broadcast continued, but the words no longer registered. All I could hear was the pulse pounding in my ears, the cold sweat dripping sound. Trying down my face, I blinked, and the figure was gone. The voice on the broadcast chuckled once more. "This is just the beginning. We'll be seeing you again." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving me in suffocating silence. I didn't sleep that night, too afraid of what might come next. The next day, I searched for any information about the midnight broadcast, but there was nothing. No station, no recordings, no mentions anywhere online. It was as if it never existed, but I knew it did. I heard it, I saw them. That was last night. Now it's exactly midnight again. The radio is broken, my phone is off, but I hear it once more. Welcome back to the midnight broadcast.
If you felt the chill tonight, there's plenty more where that came from. Darkness never sleeps, and neither do our tales. Make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell, so you never miss the next terrifying story waiting just beyond the shadows. Until then, sleep tight. If you can. This has been Scare Tales in the Dark.